Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Blue Note here in New York City. Blessing the band stage tonight is a dynamic talent by the name of Brandee Younger, who plays the harp. Now, we associate the harp with the classical world, but what Brandee has done for well over the last 20 years is that she's developed a style channeling some of her harpist heroes, including the great Dorothy Ashby, as well as the great Alice Coltrane. Now, she has an album out entitled Soul Awakening, which was produced by Desron Douglas, the legendary bassist, and she's formulated a sound of the music that she grew up listening to by way of classical, hip-hop, R&B, as well as funk. Tonight I had a chance to sit down with Brandee to talk about this brand new record, why it took so long to put this project out, as well as talk about and reflect on the life of Alice Coltrane and Dorothy Ashby and how she's been able to develop her style as a harpist, as well as talk about the compositions and writing for harp and for a group. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Miss Brandee Younger live here at the Blue Note. It's part of the Pace Report here in New York City. I am so elated and proud of you. I really, really dig this new project. Tell me where you are musically versus, I guess the first time I saw you was with your quartet recording.
Oh, yeah, at the breeding ground. That was fun. Fun fact, this was recorded before that album.
6 years ago.
Like 2012, 2013. So this was before Breeding Ground, actually. So this is like baby Brandee.
What took so long?
Things got in the way. Like when I first recorded the album, I wasn't ready to release it, but I needed merch on concerts. So that's why I hurried up and did the live record, just to have merchandise. And then Wax and Wayne got in the way because Supreme Sonacy got in the way. And then I was like, should I put it out? It's been years. Then I decided last year I'm going to do it. So here we are. It just took a long time. Plus, everything I do is self-released.
They always say, the best wine ages the best. Brandee the same way. I guess musically, this is kind of the right time for this.
I guess so. Thanks. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Explain the concept of this album.
Honestly, it was really literally where I was at the time. With my band and also two of my greatest mentors, Antoine Roney and Ravi Coltrane. So I wanted my friends and influences to be a part of the project.
You're the very first person that I've interviewed who plays this instrument.
Yay.
And there's a really rich tradition to this music because I always associate the harp with classical music, but you've taken this to a very different level.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is just the music I grew up listening to versus the music I had to learn as a harpist. I had to learn classical music, but I was listening to WBLS and, Hot 97 and things like that. So it's sort of like, how can I sort of bridge what I've learned with what I listen to?
Music is so interesting because, we are of the hip hop generation. Trap is kind of crept up on us. I mean, when I listen to this record, it's like a myriad of everything that you love. And I just want to know how you put hip hop twist to a classical instrument.
I'm glad that you said that in terms of like it involving these different, I don't know, styles, angles, however you want to phrase it. But a lot of hip hop producers would sample Dorothy Ashby. So it's not like odd that you hear harp somewhere in a hip hop track, So then when I finished college, I started to do a lot of recording sessions. A lot of hip hop sessions where they're adding, whether it's a glissando or literally the track is made of a harp pattern. So it's not that far away,
Briefly to my viewers, tell my viewers the origins of the harp. Where did it evolve from?
It depends on who you ask, but the harp evolved in Africa. If you read the Bible, David had a little lyre, it's like, a few strings. And we see the kora in Africa, but it evolved into what we play today in Europe. The big 47-string pedal harp.
It's interesting because I see a sister who's playing this elaborate and most beautiful sounding instrument. And I'm wondering, at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, I kind of envision you like playing saxophone or a flute.
Everybody else is like, are you a singer? That's what they offer in school. Flute, clarinet, saxophone. And I actually chose the flute thinking it was the clarinet. So I started out on that instrument, but there was this guy at a woman at my dad's job who played harp as a hobby. So my parents were like, our daughter's musical. Can we bring her over to your house? So that's really how I was introduced to the instrument in a nutshell.
That's crazy because, you go from most of the famous harpists, and we're going to talk about Dorothy Ashby and Alice Coltrane later. They all evolved from another instrument before they segued into playing the harp.
Right. So most common piano. They used to require that you take a few years of concentrated piano before even starting the harp. But now there are a lot of teaching methods that allow you to just start with the harp.
Revisioning and playing this instrument, what were you thinking about when you went through the process of learning classical music, and also when you graduated from high school and you went to the Hart School of Music?
While I was a kid, I was always negotiating with my teacher. Like, if I learned this in the method book, could I learn this song that I heard on the radio? And she was the bomb. She would say, okay. And she would write out whatever I was listening to on the radio as long as I completed what was in my method book. And my parents, they say now, like, you might not be doing what you do today had she not done that for you. You know, I never really thought about it until my parents said that. So I always had these two parallel lines. I had my love for jazz. I also played the trombone in jazz band. I was bad, but I thought I was good. Um, and then I had the harp, and things moved parallel. And then my goal in life was to merge them. So I think that's what I'm trying to do all these years.
I mean, Alice Coltrane did that.
Oh, she literally created a genre all itself.
Yeah, well, I think she did a little more than that. I think there were some things that she couldn't play technically on the piano that she had to play on the harp, and vice versa.
Vice versa, yeah. Definitely. There's this sound that you can get on a harp that you can't get on a piano, and vice versa, yeah.
You know, when you study classical music, and every classically trained musician or a person who studied the music, classical music has been an emphasis of how they develop their style and their technique. What were some of the things that you learned coming from the classical world that you brought to the jazz world?
Everything, my technical approach is still very classical, but also, and I did say this somewhere in an article, in just developing and working with Ravi Coltrane, him sort of, it was really at a, what do you call the word? Impressionable time. And I had this strict classical training, and I'd say, well, do you want those chords rolled or flat or arpeggiated? And he would just say, can you combine the elements of like my mom's playing with Dorothy Ashby style and Carlos Salcedo style? So we've got the spiritual side of Alice Coltrane, the more bebop style of Dorothy Ashby, and then the strict classical side of Carlos Salcedo, whom John Coltrane really admired, and sort of blend these styles. And that is, I think, what my style has morphed into. Still growing, I hope.
You are. And it's crazy because I remember we just talked a few minutes ago about the whole thing at Lincoln Center back in October about Alice Coltrane. And it's really crazy. Alice Coltrane and Dorothy Ashby hail from Detroit. And they went to the same high school, Cass Tech, which is really crazy. And like you said, both of these women brought a very unique vernacular to the harp, the jazz harp. But I would say that Dorothy was a little more Afrocentric, and she was a little more radical and also very soulful with what she was doing.
Absolutely. So Alice Coltrane didn't go to Cass Tech. I know a lot of people think so. I looked. She went to. I think somewhere is written that she did.
Yes.
But no, she didn't. Dorothy absolutely did. Alice came to the harp later, and Cass Tech actually has the longest standing harp program. So most of the students that came through Cass Tech, they started, at a young age. And yeah, you're right. Dorothy was actually just radical, period. She had a radio show where she was talking about huge issues that are still issues today: abortion, welfare, all these taboo topics.
Her father was radical too.
Was he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a Detroit thing.
Oh, I want to know about that. And his playing was clearly really evident in her playing.
She was a guitar player.
Yeah, and a lot of the voicings that she played sound really guitar-like, which worked really well on harp.
I used to live in Detroit, and I have a very strong connection with the city growing up all my life. And the jazz radio was always kind to playing their own. And, Dorothy Ashby, the Afro harping record is a masterpiece. And there's a record I like that I love, I continue to play, is the Rubaiyat of Dorothy Ashby. I think that's the record that kind of told me that you don't have to necessarily stay in one lane. You can go anywhere and get to the same destination.
It was really radical. So that was like just a year after Afro harping in '69, and it was on Cadet, and Richard Evans produced that. And he produced these records for her, and I read somewhere where he said, I want these to be the blackest records ever, which was really a great goal to set for a harp, So, they're as funky can get.
And there's a back into Richard Evans. If you hear any strings on a lot of the soul records that were produced on Cadet Chess Records, which was Leonard Chess's imprint, they were the soulful strings. And the rhythm section on the rhythm strings was ridiculous. You had Donny Hathaway, you had Phil Upchurch, you had Dorothy Ashby, you had all these amazing Chicago musicians playing on these records.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane when we look back at the. Actually, I get mad. Sometimes they're like not listed, and then you just have to listen.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, all these crazy legends on these records.
Right. And they're kind of like, and actually the soulful strings were for chess as what MSFB was for the Philadelphia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they really were like the string section, because Esmond Edmonds and there's Charles Stepney. Mm-hmm. They did a lot of the arrangements for those soulful string records.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Let's talk about evolution in developing your style, and you're still developing. What is it that you hear when you write a song, and what is it that you hear when you hear the Fortet Band, and what do you hear when you're practicing?
When I'm writing, I really think of melodic things, and then I run into a wall because I play the harp and we don't sustain notes, which is why I end up writing so much for horns, because a horn can hold a whole note out. You pluck a string on the harp, it kind of just goes away when it goes. So I really think melodically first, and I have no training in composition, so I cheat a lot. I listen to a lot of French music because as a harpist, we play a lot of French music, so I borrow ideas and harmonies from lots of that music too. And in terms of just evolving with the group, the quartet turns into the quintet, it starts to become a sextet. Then I was like, all right, let me stop, because you just kind of want more and more and more. So I'd like to actually, maybe after just getting adding one more and getting out of my system, I think I'll pare down to duo trio, so that there's more harp.
Because I'm imagining that touring with a band like this, one, because the harp is so dang on big, this has got to be kind of hard for you. Because people are trying to envision when you booking a venue, they have to think of, okay, is this a trio? Is this a quartet? This has got to be pretty hard.
Yeah, it's a logistic nightmare. We don't travel with the harp out of town, so we have to rent a harp at every location, and some venues are like, we can't source that, So I run into that a lot. Or they come to me for help, because as a harpist, we have like the American Harp Society. We all tend to help each other out in terms of connecting to get instruments, because it can be a real challenge in places like Siberia, for example. It's hard. France is easy. London is easy. The major cities are easy, but it's not equal. So that's the biggest problem, getting the harp.
You got a great quarterback on your team, Desron Douglas. I won't hold it against him because he's a Giants fan. I won't hold that against him. But he produced this album, and he's the music director. And I just saw, at Soundcheck, how organized this is. I like how you guys complement each other.
Yeah, it's a lot. So this record in particular, he definitely produced both sessions, not even on purpose. It just happens. And if you're ever sort of around when Desron's on a record, he naturally just sort of does that. He's a natural leader. And it's not necessarily because things are disorganized, but if he hears how something can be better, he volunteers it, for sure. So not just this record, but what's the record before this one? Wax and Wing?
Wax and Wing.
Yeah, so Casey Benjamin produced that record, and it was really also a group effort with Desron and Dana Hawkins. It becomes like I'm just like, thanks, because it's absolutely needed. I'm like, yeah, I don't like that suggestion. And then I'm like, yeah, it was a good idea. It was a great idea, yeah.
Musically, are you where you want to be as far as composing and as a band leader, or what are some things that you're working on to get to where you need to be?
That answer is no. I have a lot more work to do. I don't even know where to start. Yeah. But I think more writing will actually help me to start to develop the things I want. So I had to get this record out of my system.
Well, it's been in your system. I mean, what, 6 years? I mean,
Ouch.
get it out. Let's just why the baby's out. Ah!
Overdue.
Overdue. Brandee Younger, what does jazz music mean to you?
Why you ask me that? I feel like that question always now comes with controversy.
No, it doesn't. Because our experience has always come with controversy at a price.
Yes, yes, it has. I think it's the music of our people.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Blue Note here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the talented Brandee Younger for her time. Make sure you go out and buy a brand new CD, Soul Awakening, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and CD Baby. For more information for her upcoming club dates, please visit her online at www.brandeeyounger.com. I'd like to personally thank Lydia Liebman for arranging my time with Brandee, as well as the staff and management here at the Blue Note for their warm hospitality. As always, please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on The Pace Report, both here on YouTube as well as Vimeo, and visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.